Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl Podcast, a 3-time award-winning show that aims to motivate and inspire you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media, especially in relation to adventure and physical challenges. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. If you're passionate about adventure, challenge and learning from women who have overcome obstacles and achieved remarkable things, then this is the podcast for you. Every Tuesday at 7 a.m, new episodes go live featuring incredible women who share their stories, insights and tips to help you achieve your dreams and goals. You can support the Tough Girl mission by signing up as a patron. Visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Keep listening until the very end as I share more information about what's going on with me with Tough Girl Challenges, give shout outs and recommend other Tough Girl Podcast episodes. More information can be found at toughgirlchallenges.com.
So my name is Regine. I'm currently based in Singapore. I'm a national athlete specializing in the sport of triathlon. So that is swimming, cycling, and running. I didn't start off in triathlon from young. No. I actually had a background in swimming. So how I got started was that at 4 years old, my parents got me into the sport of swimming because I had a little bit of bronchitis or asthma symptoms. So the doctor said, oh, you know what? Just try swimming. It might help with the symptoms. And yeah, I started swimming since I was 4 years old. Never quite looked back. I really felt like maybe I just really enjoyed being in the water. It was very freeing, provided very calm vibes. And fast forward a few years later, at 8 years old, I've learned all 4 strokes of freestyle, breaststroke, backstroke, butterfly, and that was when I started to do competitive swimming. So how that happened was actually during one of the swim sessions, the squat swim sessions, the coach looked at me swimming and he said it in Chinese because he was a Chinese coach. He was like, oh, she's got potential. And he told my parents to let me try out for the competitive swim squad. And I tried for a swim squad. It was tough at first, not gonna lie, progressing from 3 times a week of swimming to 6 times a week of swimming. So that's almost double. But I really enjoyed the grind. More than that, I really enjoyed the friendships that were being forged, just having something to work towards, you know, just putting in months of work and then you get a personal best at your swim meets. So that's how it was for me back then during my swimming days. So I kept at it from 8 years old all the way until I was about 18 years old. So that's about a decade of hardcore competitive swimming career. And then I joined the Singapore Sports School when I was 13 years old. So Singapore Sports School was or is a boarding school, which means that you stay there from Sunday evening until you check out, go back home on Friday evening. So that was a lot of swimming. That was when I really formed the foundation of my swimming career and achievements. There was a lot of national school games and national age group championships as well. So all my PBs were during that period in time. And yeah, it's somewhere along the way, I think the transition towards triathlon started when I was about 16, 17, and 18 years old. So at 16 years old, I felt like I was plateauing a little bit, couldn't really improve in my backstroke events anymore. Back then, my pet event was backstroke. So I decided to try a little bit of freestyle, and turns out I was not too bad at the long distance freestyle events. I think maybe the coach thought that I had enough grit to be able to sustain these endurance events, things like an 800-meter freestyle, 1,500-meter freestyle. Open water distance, in fact, was something that I looked forward to. I remember having the opportunity to sign up for a 10K open water event. And that was something really exciting at 16 years old because I had never swum open water before, much less like a 5K or a 10K. But eventually, when the coach offered the opportunity, I put my hand up and said, you know what, I'll give this a try. I wasn't improving in any more of my other events. So it's just good to try other things that are a little scary, but I think that with the right guidance and people around me, I should be able to do this. Um, yeah, and survive it basically. Then that was how I got into open water and then into triathlon.
I mean, just going back to what you said, especially, you've had like sort of a decade doing the swimming. You're at school, you're really committed. Your training has increased from 3 times a week to 6 times a week. But when you get to that point where things are not improving, that must have been quite a challenging time for you, or almost very frustrating, because obviously something you've been so good at, and then now you're sort of like plateauing. How did you handle that transition, or dealing with that staticness and that not improving, even though you're probably giving everything that you've got and it's not making a difference?
Oh yeah, that for sure was a hard time. And being away from family in boarding school, I thought that yeah, I really needed to have like a support system. So I was quite glad that the coaches were quite understanding for me to try out different avenues. So that was the first thing that I did. I was trying out different things, trying out different events. Another thing that I did apart from open water swimming was to try this thing called aquathlons, which is a swimming and running event. So basically you would swim and then you get onto the land, put on your shoes and off you go running maybe a 2.5K or 5K. So that was one thing, was to try new things. I think the second thing was speaking to people, because I was pretty sure that I was not the only one who had been through such plateaus. So I spoke with maybe friends, maybe teachers. My parents have been really huge support pillars as well. They were very supportive in that if I didn't continue swimming, they were like, oh, it's okay, just try some other things. Who knows, you might like these other things and, stick with them. As long as you're happy, we're happy. So that was the second thing. I think the third thing really came down to looking within myself and asking myself, what exactly was I doing this sport for? I think there was a period in time where I was chasing results, timings, ranks, positions, all because I wanted to gain others' approval, others' validation. It's kind of more externally motivated rather than intrinsically motivated. So I had to sit down with myself to maybe journal, write down my thoughts, my feelings. Um, I think I might still have that journal somewhere in my cupboard. But yeah, it was like a lot of negative feelings at first, like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. I can never be the top. And then I realized that, hmm, actually all these goals did not really align with my core values, which is like, oh, why did I even get into this sport in the first place? I just simply wanted to have fun. I wanted to make friends. I just wanted to chase personal growth. And why was I seeking so much validation from like coaches, trying to prove my friends wrong whenever there were any doubters or haters? Like, when you're chasing all these achievements, there's going to be some people who would doubt you, who would, throw things in your path. But that's actually something that's not up to us to control. So that was the third thing that I had to really go in deep with myself in order to gradually leave that place of unhappiness and that little void. Yeah, I won't say it happened overnight. In fact, I think it took a couple of months here, probably like almost months to a year or so for me to find back my spark. But eventually when I did, I was so glad I did that inner work, because it eventually carried through until today, where I'm able to compete in my sport and also at a higher level.
When you were at the boarding school, obviously your main focus was swimming, but were you also doing running, cycling, weight training? Were you exposed to sort of the other sports as well. So what was like your running and cycling journey like?
So in Singapore, every year in our secondary school life, so that's from 13 years old to 16 or 18 years old, you would have to do a physical fitness test, which involved a 2.4 kilometers run. And I've always been quite decent at running, like coming in maybe the first few in my cohort. And this was based on pure swimming training. So maybe 15 or 16 years old, I decided to take running a bit more seriously, run a few more times a week. So like before then, when I was not even running at all, I would just practice it maybe a few months out of that test. But I decided to run maybe 3 or 4 times when I was 16 years old, and it actually resulted in quite a decent improvement in my time. So that's when I realized, hey, running is actually quite enjoyable, and I'm making some gains from it. And then I just kept running every week. And now into triathlon, I have more structured sessions now, so it's not quite the same as last time. And for cycling, okay, so cycling was a bit of a scary journey for me because in triathlon, it's always better if you are able to pick up cycling skills a little earlier in your life so that it builds confidence. But for me, I was a bit of a late bloomer. I only picked up proper road cycling at 19 years old. Like I knew how to cycle, but not with a proper road bike with the proper techniques. I only got into it seriously at 19 years old, which is a bit later than my peers. But it was a steep learning curve. I don't regret picking up cycling later because like what else could I do, right? I just gotta learn the ropes, enjoy the process, survive a few crashes here and there, which is always inevitable, and basically just try to pull up from there. I think the good thing about picking up cycling a bit later is that when we go out onto group rides onto the roads, we have this better awareness of like the surrounding around us because that's when I also picked up my driver's license. So having that extra bit of safety element helps with me training along the road in Singapore. And then for weight training, I've had the privilege of learning from good coaches, good strength and conditioning coaches since in Singapore sports school since I was 14 or 15 years old, and I've never really stopped weight training since then. It has really helped with injury prevention, just general strength and conditioning, really knowing how to do certain technique right in terms of the squats, the deadlifts, pull-ups, push-ups, all these basic compound movements. And I'm really grateful that I really had all these good mentors back then.
You talked about sort of, getting into triathlon and obviously going through this experience where you sort of did this deep work on yourself, really reflecting on, your motivations, what your core values were. And I would just be interested in how that changed maybe your ambitions, like whether or not, sort of growing up, whether your dreams were to be a professional sports person or how that sort of changed and evolved.
So that was a very funny story. I had this dream of being on the national team since I was 12 years old. I remember saying that to my parents. And then when I went to boarding school, I still held on to that dream. Back then, I even knew I was very specific. I wanted to get into this national team for swimming and in the 50-meter, 100-meter backstroke events. And I mentioned this to a friend. I don't even remember which friend it was in boarding school. And then yeah, so when I mentioned it to her, she actually laughed at me and said like it was not possible. Um, even though I might be laughing now, but I remember back then that feeling of, how dare you doubt me? And just wanting to prove everybody wrong and just make it to the national team. So eventually I did not make the national team for swimming, but I did make it for triathlon. And I realized that there were two different approaches to this. So when I was trying to make the national team for swimming, I was very busy listening to what other people had to say, and I was just neglecting what my own body and what my heart was telling me in terms of like, oh, maybe you should take it easier today. You need to recover, right? Because training is not just training. You have to train and then recover, train, recover in order for you to adapt to the training stimulus. But I wasn't quite doing that. I was merely in it to prove that I was tough. I was able to face all these challenges. So in swimming, eventually I burnt out when I was chasing that goal. So that was before. And then I had a bit of intervention in between, had to do some inner work. And eventually I decided, you know what, I really love sports. I don't think I can imagine a life without sport in my life, basically. So I decided, okay, what is it that can help me to make this life sustainable, make my goal sustainable? It's actually just being consistent in the training. And it's not about like having 100% good days. It's more about just knowing that showing up every day and trying your best, depending on how you feel on the day, that's what counts. So when I switched over to triathlon, that was a kind of different mindset that I went into was, have fun, make friends, get some good mentors who can guide you along the way, and really just enjoy the process at every step, regardless of how big or small your win is. Like small wins might just be, oh, learning a new bike skill and learning how to balance on a bike or something. So that was the small win for me back then. And maybe a slightly bigger win was my recent qualification for the national team. So all these have to be celebrated, I feel. And that was something that on hindsight, I did not quite do back during my swimming days. So I'm glad that I've done this inner work, realized what I was in these sports for, and eventually forging a better mindset to take on all these challenges in the future.
Part of your LinkedIn profile says, endurance athlete, Gen Z speaker. And what I'm interested in is your perspective as a Gen Z. I'm a millennial. And when I was sort of growing up, the conversations around mental health and, things like burnout and I suppose being kind to yourself wasn't really part of it. It was almost like, no pain, no gain. It's, get, that sort of give it everything you've got sort of message, which obviously, is still important in the world of sports. But I'd just be interested in, I suppose, your perspectives on that sort of burnout and maybe the support that you received around your mental health, getting that support to help you deal with the different changes that you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always this talk about burnout and how to deal with burnout. Yeah, me being born in this Gen Z era, I think it's a very good place to be in because I'm kind of in the middle, whereby you have millennials who are like, okay, no pain, no gain, like you rightly pointed out, and just give it everything you got. If the going gets tough, just suck it up and keep
Yeah.
moving forward. Yeah, absolutely. And then you also have the other school of thought, which is like, oh, take care of your mental health. If things get too tough, just don't push it, take it easy. So I think there has to be a middle ground in the middle. And from this journey, I definitely did start out my sporting career with like just trying to muscle through all the trainings. If you felt tired for some reason, you weren't feeling your best, just suck it up. Just go for training and just try to push through it. But I think not just for mental health aspect, it's also for physical health. These two go hand in hand. There has to be a better way to look at it because, of course, I'm not saying that, don't push yourself. Definitely push yourself, but in a sensible manner. So I did study sports science, and that opened my eyes to the principles of training, especially for endurance sports in terms of like zone two training, how you're supposed to build up the volume periodization in order to schedule your training accurately for your races, as well as progressive overload, in which you slowly increase the volume of your training. Otherwise, you're gonna be overtrained and then you not perform at your best. So all these will definitely help. Sorry, what was the question again?
No. It's around that. Just I suppose like the Gen Z perspective on sort of like mental health, but I suppose that also then feeds into training. So it's not like, well, okay, I've got to do X amount of hours per week. I'm just going to do it no matter how I'm feeling or whatever.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and maybe it's just like because you've been grown up in a different generation, you have a different perspective on it. Maybe you're kinder to yourself. And I suppose also the technology has improved as well, and people's understanding
Mm-hmm.
of endurance sports and and everyone does have smartwatches now and smartphones. Even on my watch, it tells me, how much sleep I'm getting. It tells me what my recovery is doing. And that's just
Mm.
me, like a non-professional athlete, if you know what I mean. Whereas now this information that maybe wasn't available 20 years ago is much more common.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I think you touched on a point that it just slipped in my mind, but thanks for bringing me back. Recovery was something that I had not thought about back when I was starting sports. I was always like, okay, training, 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 training. There was no thoughts about recovery. But now that I'm into triathlon and as a working adult, you've got to be quite on the ball with your recovery. And when recovery, I mean three things. So first is nutrition. Nutrition, especially as a female endurance athlete, it is so important to be fueling enough for the training and fueling with the right foods. Like fueling enough, I think underfueling was a problem that I faced back in high school. For some reasons, there was a subconscious mentality that, oh, okay, if you are skinnier, you're leaner, you can perform better, but it might not always be the case for everybody. So this is something that I'm pretty sure a lot of female endurance athletes would talk about because fueling right will actually set you up for the long game. You're not just here for a short period of time unless you have to overtrain, you have to push your body to the limits. I wouldn't say like I won't stop anyone from doing that, but I mean personally I'm here for the long game. So I've learned the hard way that it's actually really important to fuel enough and fuel well for the body. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is actually sleep. Sleep is in Singapore, I think our average amount of sleep for the Singaporean is drastically low at 6+ hours per night, which is not desirable. So as an athlete, we should try to aim for more sleep. I personally try to get 7.5 every night, maybe plus minus depending on the work schedule. But that's really when your body gets the chance to recover, and it's literally the most underrated performance enhancing drug. And people are like, what's the best performance enhancing drug? And I always say it's sleep. So
I,
sleep is, yeah.
I I love the fact you're trying to get like 7.5 hours, and I'm like 9 hours is well, 8.5 is probably my sweet spot, but I'm trying to increase it because I also read recently a lot of the sleep studies that have been done on men, and actually women need more sleep compared to men. Sleep is so, so important. And one of the things he said is, you are a working professional and you are doing your triathlon around that as well. How are you managing that? How do you make that work for your lifestyle? Where does training fit in for you?
Yeah, so that actually brings me to my third point about stress management and like juggling a full-time job with triathlon training. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who does this, but with a full-time job, we typically split our training into the mornings and the evenings. So for myself, I try to train like 5 to 7 a.m. So that's like a good 2 hours block to fit in either a swim, bike, or a run. And then maybe a shorter session in the evening after work. I think after work, sometimes motivation gets a bit low. So I try to hype myself up by dragging somebody along with me. So like, hey, let's go for a run. Yeah, let's go for a swim together, join a swim squad or something, or like hit the gym together. That always helps personally because triathlon training is like three different sports and then you have some strength training on top of it. So I feel that planning ahead is very crucial if you really want to get all your training in. So what I like to do on a weekly basis is look at uh Monday to Sunday schedule, see where I can fit my training for each of the days. So I'll be like, okay, Monday morning I will do a bike session, and then evening I will do a gym session, and Tuesday morning will be a swim, Tuesday evening will be a track session with a club, and then Wednesday is maybe a rest day, and then Thursday morning would be maybe a bike or something. Evening would be another gym. Friday is like swim and then a run. And Saturday, Sunday would be like a long run, long ride, as well as an additional swim. So planning is really, really good in order to remove or reduce the amount of cognitive load. You don't want to go into the week stressing about, oh, I've got this amount of work, but work doesn't really change. But you've got to go in with the mindset, okay, I've already planned this training. It's a template that I can follow. If anything goes astray, you can actually shift around the trainings as well. So having a template helps, but also remembering that you actually have the flexibility to shift around the trainings if as and when needed. So that's going to help with the stress management. And for me, I love training because it's my way of coping with life stresses. So it's always a good way to manage stress from work. And then at work, just, do the best you can, control what you can control. If you can't control, then it's okay. It's not your problem anyway. So that's kind of the mindset that, you have at work.
Do you coach yourself or do you work with a coach?
I work with a coach, but I'm also an assistant coach. So there are some sessions whereby I would plan the sets and like I'll have a say in, okay, what is it I want to work on for this session. So I think that always helps having two hats, like putting on a hat of an athlete and after that putting on the hat of a coach. Because like sometimes when you coach other athletes, you'd be like, oh, I never ever thought to do that for myself. And then I'm like suggesting this to another athlete. Maybe I should try it myself.
One of the things that you say in your sort of LinkedIn bio is obviously endurance athlete, Gen Z speaker, but you also say empowering aspiring professionals to boost consistency and sustain productivity using the principles of endurance sports. And I'd love just to hear more about the principles of endurance sports that you sort of encourage people to use to sustain productivity, to boost consistency. What do those principles look like?
One of the first few principles that I would preach is the principle of consistency. So what consistency looks like is not always about 100% every single session. Rather, it might look like, okay, maybe 80%, 85%, but it's something that you can sustain throughout the weeks, throughout the months, throughout the years. Because in triathlon, the compounding effect is very real. What you can sustain without getting injured, without getting overtrained, will eventually lead you to build the wide aerobic base. And that's what's going to help you to improve your performance, especially at longer distances such as Ironman 70.3s, Ironmans, ultras, etc., etc. So that is something that I wish to inspire not just triathletes, but also people like executives, people in the corporate workspace, that you don't have to really squeeze everything like your whole life just based on one day because that's just simply not sustainable. Rather, just do what you feel you can sustain on a daily basis, maybe from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And then also remember that you have a life outside of your work. So, put it maybe 85% so called from using the triathlon analogy. And then eventually you would find that all these efforts would compound. Of course, work on your visibility as well, because that's what's gonna get you promoted. And then that should actually help you to stop feeling so burnout. Because one problem I see a lot, especially for young Gen Z people like me going into the workforce, is that we get burnt out pretty easily. And it's not like our workload is super high. It's more of the mental load. We try to put every fiber of our being into the work, but actually the results, it doesn't reciprocate. So what I would teach other people is actually, just try to communicate the expectations a bit more. Just I'm not asking you to do the bare minimum, but also not asking you to go to the other extreme of like putting everything out there. Just do something that you find is sustainable and that should help you with your career progression. So that's one of it, consistency. Yeah.
Would you like to share one of your favorite triathlon events, experiences, one of those moments that really stands out for you? Why you do the sport?
Oh, wow. This is, yeah, there's so many moments from triathlon. I mean, from swimming as well. Can I pick one from each?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I think my favorite moment in swimming, very easy to pick. Probably it's the time when I first won my first medal at the National School Games. That was back in, well, I can't remember what year, but I was 12 years old. So back then, I think this National School Games series is a big thing. All my friends that I was training with, they were all really good swimmers, and I would see them get the podium like all the years before. So I've never really gotten anywhere near a podium before. But that year, under the guidance of very good coaches, I managed to improve and secure a bronze by just a couple milliseconds. In fact, being the bronze year, the third place, fourth place, and fifth place, we were all the same time, but we were all separated by milliseconds. And somehow I managed to get my hand to the wall first. So I managed to clinch that medal, and I was really, really grinning from year to year when I stood on the podium and just watched my school having their flag there for the first time. That was easily one of my favorite moments. And for triathlon, the moment that came right straight to my mind right now is during the run of my first ever 70.3. So that was in Busselton, Western Australia. I remember I was running along the shore and all these people were just cheering for all the fleets. And somebody was even shouting, "Hey, Singapore!" And I was wearing a Singapore tri-suit with the colors, and then there was also SGP written on it. So that gave me a sense of pride that, hey, people actually recognize this country, this small country. And then they were just cheering each other on. It really reminded me of the whole reason why I love the triathlon community. It's so wholesome. Everyone is here to support one another. We are all here for each other's progress, for each other to grow together. And yeah, it's just a great place to be in. Yeah, so that's probably the two greatest moments I can remember.
I love it. And Regine, what are your plans for the future? What are the next goals that you're working towards or the next race that you're working towards?
So in the shorter term, I'm working towards the Southeast Asian Games happening in December this year. So we are hoping to bring home some medals. So let's see how it goes. It's the first time I'm competing in this format of a relay. So it'll be good fun to work in a team. I've never really done that before. Yeah.
Is that like the triathlon's done as part of the team or how does that work?
So I'm doing the aquathlon relay. So we have four people in our team. So each person does a 300-meter swim and a 2.5-kilometer run. And then you pass over to the next person and everybody accumulates the time. And essentially whoever's last athlete crosses the line, then that will be the position counted.
Nice. And how's all the training going?
Yeah, actually the training has been going quite well. I'm excited as the next few weeks go on because we will start to train together more intensively. Now we are still, because we are under different coaches, so we are still kind of following our own programs. But you can see that as the time to SEA Games comes closer, we are able to align our programs together, come together to work as a team. And of course, there's going to be a bit of friendly competition between us because we are just trying to make each other better. That's for the short term goal. And long term goals, I intend to continue smashing some 70.3s, maybe look at an Ironman sometime soon. And I do have some big goals of returning to open water swimming. I do have that bucket list itch to do the English Channel crossing. So that's one. Maybe let's see which other of the Ocean 7 events I can tick off the bucket list. So Ocean 7s are these seven big ocean swims. English Channel crossing is one of them. I think there's others like the Cook's Strait, and there's a Suragi Strait in Japan, and there's also one in Hawaii. I can't pronounce the name, but yeah, let's see how it goes. I'm quite excited. I know I'm years ahead, but I'm kind of already planning for the English Channel crossing. Maybe when I'm like somewhere in my 30s.
I love this. It's really important, I think, to have these bigger, ambitious goals that, really excite you, even if it is like quite a few years ahead of you, because some of these
Yeah.
things, it takes like training and commitment and
Mm-hmm.
experience and funding as well. So actually, absolutely put the dreams and plans in place now, because that will be
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. Yeah, I'm so excited thinking about it.
And Regine, how can people follow along with you? Where are you most active on social media?
I'm pretty active on Instagram at Regine.tries. So that's WEEZUINE .TRIES. And I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. So that's just my name, Regine, REGINE. There's also a bracket with my Chinese name inside, and then my surname, which is Goh.
Amazing. I'll put all of those links in the show notes. But Regine, I'd love for you to share your final words of advice, final words of wisdom for other women and girls listening who want to follow their passions in endurance sports. What advice would you like to share? But please don't say just do it. Anything else apart from that?
Well, my advice is actually going to be a bit shorter. It is just to have fun because really fun is really everything that you want from endurance sport. It might seem endurance sport might seem boring, but once you find something that's fun for you, go ahead, have a crack, and just enjoy the process.
Absolutely. And you know what? Have fun. That is what it is all about. Regine, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast and sharing more about your love and passion for endurance sports. And best of luck with all your adventures and challenges. And I hope to see you swimming across the English Channel when you hit your 30s.
Thanks, Sarah. It's a pleasure being on this podcast.
Hey tribe, how are you all doing? I hope you really enjoyed the episode with Regine. I love speaking to endurance athletes, and especially endurance athletes who are at different ages. Like we mentioned, Regine is Gen Z, so her outlook and views will be very different from, say, like a millennials or a boomers. And so it's always great to get different perspectives around endurance training, mental health, and learn different tips and tricks that you can apply to your training. Now, just remember, one of the key things if you're a triathlete is do not compare yourself with other women. You look at other women, be inspired by other women, but do not compare yourself to other women. So on the Tough Girl podcast, I've spoken with a wide range of different triathletes, and it's all about listening to their tips and tricks to see, well, what can I use to help me? So if you visit toughgirlchallenges.com, there is a triathlete resources page, and we've spoken to a wide range of athletes. So We've spoken, for example, Naomi Rumble, who's leading by example, overcoming barriers and redefining what an athlete looks like. Prue Young, she's a lady I actually met when I was over in New Zealand on the Tiaroa Trail. She's an MS warrior, and she shares more about her journey of competing in the Ironman World Championships in Kona. We've got Linda Blakely. She shares more about her inspiring journey of an Ironman athlete who then went on to summit Everest and Lhotse and rode the Atlantic Ocean. We've spoken with Frankie Forzoni, who shares more about her mental health struggles and how she ended up becoming a Norseman extreme triathlon finisher. There's Alex Larson, who's a dietitian and triathlete. She shares more about fueling endurance athletes for peak performance and personal success. Kelly Smith from the UK, she's the founder of the Black Tri Tribe, UK's first triathlon club for Black people. We've spoken with the Regine Goh. She's an ultra runner and 2 times Ironman finisher. She was the first person in South Africa to finish a full Ironman in a hijab. Absolutely inspiring stories. So if this is the first time you're listening to the Tough Girl podcast, just take a couple of minutes, visit the website, toughgirlchallenges.com, just literally have a scroll through. To be honest, I think you can learn anything from any of the episodes of the women that I've spoken to. But if you do have a particular interest, if you're like, actually it's endurance challenges, ultra endurance challenges that you're going after, or you're training for your first triathlon, then obviously there will be more specific episodes that will be relevant to you. But all I'd say is enjoy the training. And like Regine says, have fun, make it enjoyable, get out there. The important thing is that, you're moving your body, you're challenging yourself, you're running, you're cycling, you're swimming. Which is so good for your mental health, but it's also so good to have challenges that you have to work towards so that you grow and develop as a person, which is what I want you to do at Tough Girl Challenges. The key takeaways for you are, what is my next challenge? What is my next adventure? And it doesn't have to be big challenges or adventures. And sometimes you might be actually, I need to focus more on recovery. I need to focus on some downtime. For me, I especially over the past couple of years, I've sort of ebbed and flowed with feeling, gosh, I'm getting quite burnt out now because I have been hitting it too hard. And so it can just be a balance. So it's also okay just to pull back a little if you need to, or maybe switch disciplines if you think actually, that the running is burning me out, or you're injured and struggling with injury, then maybe it is trying cycling or trying something completely different. I also gave ballet a go because I thought, right, I'm going to work on my ankle strength. So started doing ballet on a weekly basis, which, to be fair, has been really fun, even though I'm like an elephant, I think is the only way to describe me. I am not graceful in the least, but it was fun. It's enjoyable. It took me outside of my comfort zone. So all I'm getting you to do is just have a little think a little bit deeper, reflect a little bit more. There is lots of information. There's lots of resources available to help you and support you on your journey, wherever your journey is taking you. Thank you so much to the incredible patrons and supporters of the Tough Girl podcast. If you would like to support the work that I do, then please visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast. And you can sign up as a monthly patron, or if you wanted to make a one-off donation, that is also available to you. You can fund in multiple currencies and it all just gets converted into sterling. I actually do leave some of it in US dollars as well, as I have a couple of bills and payments that I need to make in US dollars. There's also on the website, there is a PayPal donate button at the very bottom. So you can just do a one-off donation via PayPal if you would prefer. The money is really, really appreciated. It allows me to fund the running costs of the podcast, keeping, all of these episodes up there, where you can listen to them, go back, listen to the old episodes, subscribe so you listen to the new episodes. If you want to keep up to date with what I'm up to, then I'm probably most active on sort of Instagram at Tough Girl Challenges, but I do have space on YouTube, Pinterest, Facebook. I'm on Threads, but don't really post a huge amount. I just quite enjoy scrolling it, which I probably need to stop doing because I think I'm scrolling too much. And I'm not really on Twitter anymore, or X anymore. I don't really like that platform. I think it's very toxic. It's certainly changed from when it first started. Just my opinion. You can be obviously on any social media platform that you choose. Thank you again for listening. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.